a middle-class Victorian woman is hard, especially when all you want is to be a duchess. I mean, you would kill to be a duchess, but the only way to attract a noble is to have a large enough dowry. Thankfully, your parents left you with a small dowry and some land when they died, but you'll have to build wealth through investments and strategic serial marriages to attract the Duke in Deadly Dowagers, which was designed by Sarah Shipp with art by Mercedes Palacios and published by Tabletop Tycoon, who sponsored this video. Hi everyone, my name is Candace Harris from Board Game Geek. We have husbands to deal with and a Duke to impress, so let's get down to the table and learn how to play Deadly Dowagers. In Deadly Dowagers, 2 to 6 players take on the roles of middle-class Victorian women racing to be the first person to marry the Duke. You'll draft and play cards to invest in land and ventures while strategically marrying and killing off husbands to inherit enough wealth to marry the Duke before your opponents. Serial marrying is gritty business though, so be careful not to gain too much infamy or the Duke may pass you over for another bride. Before we start saying I do over and over, let's go over the setup for Deadly Dowagers. To begin, sort the husband cards by dowry cost and the crown tokens by value and place them in piles face up in reach of all players. These represent the pool of available husbands and the bank, respectively. Each player gets 1 player board, 1 infamy track token, and 5 crowns. Place the infamy track token on the 0 space of the infamy track on your player board. Next, shuffle the starting farmland cards and pass 2 to each player. Return the remaining cards to the box since they will not be used in this game. Each player places the 2 starting farmland cards face up in front of them to begin their tableau. Shuffle the main deck cards and place them face down within reach of all players. Next, each player selects a working class husband card, either a farmer, curate, or a professor. If there's a disagreement over the limited husbands available, the youngest player chooses first. Place the husband card next to your player board, pay the dowry for that husband card to the bank, and then adjust your infamy by the amount of infamy gained from this marriage. Your infamy represents your reputation and suitability for marriage, and it's something you'll have to manage carefully in Deadly Dowagers. Now you're ready to kill and marry some husbands. Before we jump into how the gameplay works, I wanted to mention that there's historical text sprinkled throughout the rulebook with retellings of real events. However, it's important to make it clear that this game is a work of satire. The designer and publisher of this game do not endorse murdering your actual husband, nor any other murder or violence of any kind. And they've included a disclaimer in the rulebook to make everyone aware of this. Deadly Dowagers is played over a series of rounds until the game ends when 1 player marries the Duke. Each round is divided into 4 phases, starting with the drafting phase, followed by the investment phase, the husband phase, and the housekeeping phase. Each phase is played simultaneously by all players. In the drafting phase, players draw 5 cards from the main deck in no particular order, and then you'll each choose 1 card and pass the remaining 4 cards to the player on your left. Next, you'll choose 1 card from the 4 new cards in your hand and pass the remaining 3 cards to the player on your left. Then choose 1 card from the 3 new cards and pass 2 to the player on your left. Finally, choose 1 card from the 2 new cards in your hand and discard the final card face up in the discard pile. At the end of each drafting phase, every player should have 4 new cards in addition to any cards left over from the previous round. Each round, you'll alternate the direction you're passing cards during this phase. So on the second round, you'll pass to the right, and on the third round, you'll pass to the left, and so on. Use the draft rotation token to keep track of the direction. And before you draw cards, if there are not enough cards in the deck for all players to draw, shuffle the discard pile and place it face down to form the main deck. During the investment phase, each player may play venture, land, and instant cards from their hand. All players play simultaneously during this phase, and you can play any number of cards from your hand in any order as long as you pay any required cost of a card to the bank before playing that card. There are 3 different types of cards you can play during the investment phase. Ventures are played face up into your tableau, and they pay rewards after your husband dies. They are also discarded at that time. Land is also played face up into your tableau. To play a land card, you must pay the purchase price to the bank. You can have up to 4 land cards in your tableau at the beginning of the game, and if you marry a noble husband, you'll be able to have up to 5 land cards in your tableau for the rest of the game. Unlike ventures, land is not discarded when a husband dies. And then you also have instants, which are played for their effect and then placed into the discard pile. During the investment phase, you may also discard any cards from your hand or your tableau. For example, you can discard a land card to make room for a different land card. If the land card you're discarding has any improvements, they're discarded as well. Whenever starting farmland cards are discarded, they are removed from the game and not placed in the discard pile like other land cards. And again, you can play any number of cards from your hand in any order during this phase. During the husband phase, you may play 1 card, either a cause of death card or a remarry card, and you may also perform one of the husband actions in any order. If you have a husband, you can play a cause of death card indicated by this icon to kill him and resolve the effects of when a husband dies, which I'll explain in a bit. If you don't have a husband, you can play a remarry card indicated by this icon to choose a new husband and pay the necessary dowry to the bank. Husbands do not have to be married in any particular order as long as you can afford the dowry, but you can't marry a husband if there are no cards of that type left in the pool of available husbands. When you marry a working class husband, you'll increase your infamy by the amount indicated on the card. Alternatively, if you're marrying a noble husband, you must meet the infamy requirement on that husband card. For example, to marry a knight, your infamy must be 13 or lower. Remember, this phase is played simultaneously, so if you have your eye on a particular husband, you'll have to beat your opponents to him. These husbands are shallow creatures and will marry the first player to pay the appropriate dowry. But if there is still a dispute on timing, you can decide with a coin flip or some other random method. In addition to, or instead of playing a cause of death or remarry card, you can take one of 3 husband actions which don't require a card. You can kill a husband and strangle your current husband, which will increase your infamy by 7, and you can even choose to kill a husband you just married with a remarry card. If you're unmarried, you can take the elope action to marry a new husband and increase your infamy by 5 after the wedding. This means you can still marry a husband if the infamy you gain would bring you over his limit, as long as you were below the limit before the marriage. You can choose this option even if you played a cause of death card during this husband phase, and the same dowry, infamy requirements, and infamy penalties apply as when you play a remarry card. However, you cannot elope with the Duke. And if you don't want to kill a husband or elope, you can also promote a husband if your husband is a curate or a professor. When you promote, you may only advance your husband by 1 level per husband phase. You'll pay 3 crowns to the bank to advance your husband by 1 level to become a reverend or a dean, or pay 5 crowns to advance your husband a second time to become a bishop or a chancellor, using a promotion token to mark each career advancement. Since it's a key aspect to the game, let's go over what happens when a husband dies. When you play a cause of death card or kill your husband by strangling him, first you'll increase your infamy by the amount indicated on the cause of death card, or by 7 if you strangled him. Then you'll also increase your infamy by the number of husbands that were already in your graveyard, not counting your current victim. Next, you'll trigger settling of accounts based on this icon on your husband card and cards in your tableau. Collect the inheritance willed to you on your husband card, but if your infamy level is 10 or higher, reduce your total inheritance by 5 crowns. Then collect money due from your venture and land cards. Crowns are collected from the bank. Finally, discard all venture cards in your tableau, discard the cause of death card if you played one to murder your husband, and then place your husband card face down in your tableau next to your player board. This is your graveyard. After the husband phase, there's a housekeeping phase where you'll check to see if your hand exceeds 3 cards, and if so, you must discard down to 3 cards. Your hand size is only checked during the housekeeping phase, so it's totally fine to have more cards in your hand at any other point in a round. And you'll also flip the draft token to the other side. You'll continue playing through these phases round after round until the game ends, when one player has no current husband, no more than 9 infamy, spends 120 crowns, and plays a remarry card to marry the Duke and win the game. Again, you may not elope to marry the Duke. If 2 or more players are able to marry the Duke during the husband phase, the player with the most money left wins. If there's still a tie, the player with the least infamy wins. Any further ties beyond that should be settled in a rematch of the game. And that's how you play Deadly Dowagers. But before you go, let's quickly go over a few card examples so you can better familiarize yourself with the iconography in the game. The Farmer is a working class husband card that allows you to sell and discard farmland cards from your hand, not your tableau, for 3 crowns each during the investment phase. The Earl is a noble husband card that doubles all infamy reduction. For example, when playing a charity card to lower your infamy, reduce your infamy by 4 instead of 2, noting infamy cannot go below 0. Also, infamy reduction does not apply to previously played cards, such as estate cards already in your tableau. When you play an Affair instant card, you increase your infamy by 2 and take 5 crowns from the bank. This is one of the few ways to gain money without killing your husband. With the Rumors instant card, you gain 1 infamy and increase all other players' infamy by 2. During settling of accounts after a husband dies, each mill card in your tableau allows you to gain 2 crowns plus 1 crown for each matching resource icon on your farmland and rent cards. For example, there are 3 resource icons that match this mill, so you would gain 5 crowns total from this mill card. Shipping venture cards represent investments that are a little uncertain. You must collect a set of at least 3 shipping cards to gain money. Once you collect 5 shipping cards, you must start a new set in order to keep collecting, but you cannot start a new set if you have an incomplete set. During settling of accounts, calculate for each set, not each card. For example, a set of 5 shipping cards will gain you 12 crowns in total, not 60. And if you're married to a professor, your sets of shipping cards act as if they have 1 more shipping card. So if you have 4 shipping cards and you're married to a professor, you'll gain 12 crowns total. Deadly Dowagers really shines with its unique theme and accessible simultaneous gameplay. You'll have to carefully manage your infamy level while trying to gain wealth and race your opponents to marry the Duke first. If this sounds like a game you'd enjoy, you can order Deadly Dowagers from tabletoptycoon.com and be sure to check out its page on Board Game Geek. I'm Candace Harris from Board Game Geek, and that is how you play Deadly Dowagers. Have a great day.